Brooke Bishop, welcome to Empower Network TV. Your body keeps the score. Let's do it.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Very cool. And the cool thing is your body, tattooed on your body, is a whole story. You got stuff going on.
I do. I have all sorts of things happening. There's my little...
Look at the birds, the hummingbird wings flapping.
Got lots of my butterfly over here. Got the divine feminine, divine masculine, yin yang energy over there. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then you got this beautiful thing behind you, which we were talking about off camera, which you got purchased because you're like, this inspires you.
Yeah. I just saw it and I was like, that is me. That's mine. That's mine. And then it was actually interesting when I put it up in my studio. I have two little boys and my son was like, Mom, that's such a cool picture of you. And I was like, thanks. It's not me, but cool.
Kind of, now that he says that, I kind of, okay. So how did you, yeah, exactly. So you're telling a story, and we're going to talk about your story of you journeying, Brooke, through a number of difficult things that you have had a lot of healing in now, but it wasn't always the case. So where do you want to start?
I would say that I had like what I thought was like a pretty great, happy life. I grew up super, super religious, then ended up kind of having a, internal dark night of the soul, trying to understand what I really believed in my mid-20s, decided to separate from that, but, had a pretty good, mostly things were really good. And then I was so focused, I think, on learning how to be really good in that container that I wasn't taught, and I didn't know as much about relationships and how to navigate them in a way that was healthy. And that led me into different spaces where I experienced a whole lot of abuse. Lots of that happening, mental abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. And it took me a long time to work through those things. And it took me an even longer time to be able to talk about them, to say the words out loud, and then an even longer time to be able to be in a place where I can talk about it without putting myself back into trauma. And I got really good at kind of blocking out what was going on. I think my body was just trying to keep me, like I was juggling all these balls and trying to like think steps ahead and try to plan my way out of situations that would be negative, or, positively hurt or possibly hurtful. And I was spending so much of my energy doing that I didn't realize how deep I was in a situation that I shouldn't have been in. And it took a lot to wake me up from that. And eventually a line was crossed, and I did speak to it one time. I didn't have my voice at the time. I didn't feel like I could speak what I felt, and I didn't know how to keep myself safe. I didn't know how to get myself out of the situation. It was very confusing because it wasn't just all bad, like there was lots of amazing things. And so I didn't know what to do. I felt pretty stuck. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And I didn't think the things that I was experiencing happened to people like me, which is like a super judgy thing to say, which I was judgy at the time. Like, I just thought, I'm not in like that type of relationship. Like that happens to other people that, like I think I'm a pretty knowledgeable person. I'm a well-educated person. I have good people around me. Like this doesn't happen to people that are me, which is so judgy. So I've got through that. So, but I thought that at the time, and I was like, so I didn't think that. I just was like, well, that was a bad night. That was a bad night. So there was a point where a line was crossed, and I decided I had to make change. which was it was very hard. It was very hard. It was very emotional. I actually didn't really feel like I was in a position where I had a choice. It didn't feel brave at all. It felt like survival. And when I got out of that, well, it was even before I got out of that situation, my body started doing stuff that I didn't understand. Like I couldn't sleep at all. I started getting this really bad stomach ache that lasted for years. I'm not kidding. Where I couldn't eat very well. I lost a lot of weight. And I just was kind of juggling all this stuff. And then finally, when I removed myself from the situation, my body, everything got worse with my body, which is interesting. Like it was kind of starting when I was in the situation, but then when I was away from the situation, all of these things started happening. I started losing my hair like in chunks, like as if I was going through chemotherapy, like a patch would come out of my head. And I would be like, what is happening? And I started I couldn't sleep. I was getting like 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, that'll totally wreck your body. You can't think straight, can't do anything. And I was trying to, manage my life and figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to, survive and do all these things. And I didn't want anybody to know what I was going through, which is ridiculous. I was so ashamed that had been in the situation I was in, that I didn't handle it differently, that I don't know. I didn't tell one person. I have good friends. I didn't tell one person what I was experiencing when I was going through it. I had too much shame around all of it and around, I just also didn't want to admit what was happening, I think too. That's not real. That's not happening. And that's one of the reasons that I want to talk about this, because there are people there's a woman somewhere in a house that is listening to this, that is experiencing this, and also hasn't told anybody and doesn't know what to do. And I want to reach those people and give them tools that they can start helping themselves, that they can reach a state of empowerment to do whatever it is that they need to do to feel better or remove themselves from a hard situation or whatever the story may be. But because once I was a little bit away, my body just kind of started freaking out. And then I started having panic attacks. And if you've never had one, I had never had one. They are brutal. And I did not know what was happening to me. And it came at the weirdest time. It was a beautiful sunny day. I went in, I had the day to myself. I went to go and just kind of look at this beautiful store, a home furnishing store, and just get fun ideas. Because as you can see, I like to have cool stuff in my house and I like to have inspiration. So I just went over and I was walking through the store, and it was, I was happy. Everything was great. And I was walking through and I got to the back of the store, and there was a picture. I mean, there's a gallery full of all these paintings and things on the wall. And there was a picture, and it was just a drawing of a woman from behind, like her silhouette. And she was crouched in a ball, looked like she was maybe crying. And before I could even register, I'm just scanning the wall. Before I even can register that I've seen that picture, what the picture is at all, I'm holding stuff that I was going to buy. I just start shaking. And all of a sudden my heart is racing and my eyes well up with tears and I cannot breathe. And I'm just like, so this is like a public place. I look like a crazy person at the back of the store. And I'm just realizing I don't know what's happening to me. So I drop everything that I'm holding and I bolt. I run out, dive in my car, lock the door, pull my knees up and cuddle down. And I just cry. And I stayed in my car like that for over an hour, just shaking and couldn't slow my heart down. And I was like, what the hell is happening to me? And that picture reminded my body of one of the scariest moments in my experiences, where it was a night where I ended up locking myself in a bathroom and curling up on the floor and cry. I thought I was going to die that night. And it took me right back. My body took me right back to being curled up, crying in the corner of a bathroom in a different country. And then I didn't know, I was like, well, I think I need some help, because I didn't know what was happening in my body. I could not control that. I had no idea what to do. And so I started trying to figure out, like, researching panic attacks and what to do. And I tried to start finding a therapist. I had heard that EMDR can be very helpful for that, which I did do later and was effective, which kind of helps you rework specific memories from your subconscious and rewire the way that you hold them. And it moves them from the place in the frontal lobe to the back to a different spot in your brain where it's not in the trigger place. So it was helpful. But what I started doing, I had come up with this rule that this is how I survived when I was going through that time period. I was like, I am only going to allow myself to look at the next 2 hours, whatever is going to bring me the most peace in the next 2 hours is what I'm going to do. And I didn't allow myself to think about anything else because I couldn't. I was in such a state of fight or flight. My central nervous system was so dysregulated. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about that at the time. Everything was activated. Everything was triggering me. Everything was scaring me. Everything was too much. So I just 2 hours. So I decided to go to a yoga class, and I'd been to a couple before, but honestly, I thought it was kind of lame. I thought it was like boring stretching. And I went to this yoga class. It was a hot yoga class. And I went in and I struggled to hold these poses and contour my body in these ways. And my goal is basically just like to get through the class. And at the end of the class, I laid down in Shavasana. It's when you just lay at the very end, and they put you in it for like 10 minutes. And they came and they put this amazing frozen towel with lavender on my eyes. And all of a sudden, I just started sobbing. My body had been holding all of this, and it was my first experience with understanding that movement is one of the ways that you can release trauma from your body. And I couldn't stop crying. And I sat up, after I let everybody else leave because I'm a complete mess. And I walked out to the lady and I was like, I need to buy a pass. And then I started doing yoga and I fell in love with it. I started going like 6 or 7 times a week because it was the only time in my day and night, because I was only getting like 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, that I could stop my mind from racing I could not calm it down. I was so overactivated. It was the only time that you can't think in a hot yoga class. Let me just tell you, if you're in like a hot yoga flow class, it brings you right to presence. You can't think about yesterday or tomorrow or whatever. You are right in your body and you're just breathing. It's breathing and in your body, which is exactly where I needed to be. And I didn't know. So I did that a little bit obsessively for a while, and it totally helped me. And then I was like, why is this helping me so much? That's weird. Like, why does that help me? So I decided to do a yoga teacher training class, not because I wanted to teach yoga, but I just wanted to understand what was happening in my body. And then during that course that I took in becoming a certified yoga teacher, I was exposed to a whole lot of other healing modalities. So then I dove into sound and frequency. Now I do sound baths. I have a whole bunch of singing bowls and Tibetan bowls and all sorts of things that work with frequency. And frequency was so fascinating to me because it's like science is kind of catching up now with the stuff that's been working for bazillions of years everywhere else. And frequency can heal your body. It's proven. There's different frequencies that are good for your body that heal you on a cellular level. So I dove into that. That was really fascinating. Learned about Reiki, got certified in Reiki, certified in sound healing. And then I was introduced to this shamanic training that I dove into and loved it. I didn't know anything about it really, but it's working with nature. It's working with the different levels of the things that we hold in our subconscious and our unconscious. It's working with other realms and other dimensions. And I had so many interesting things happen that were inexplicable that I could not deny that I was having these amazing, really cool experiences, and it was helping me heal. I was releasing a lot of stuff, a lot of things that were trapped in my body. And it took years. Like for me, it was not a fast process. I kept hitting walls. There was just a lot held in my body. And I remember being frustrated a lot because I'm like, I have worked this issue. I have healed that. Like, I'm done with it. I don't want to think about it. I'm not going there. And I had this very interesting experience. I went down to Peru with the group that I trained with, my shamanic group that I trained with. And it was so interesting. I experienced this plant medicine ceremony down there. And inside this experience, it took me at the very beginning. So it's kind of like lasts the whole day, basically. You're in this experience. And it's, guided and everything. But in the experience, I was taken right to the door of my hardest experience. And I was like, nope, I'm not. I did that. I have worked that to death. I'm not going in, I'm not doing it. And then I spent the next 10 hours being very miserable, very sick, and wanting to just, I didn't want to do that. I just was like, I have already healed that. I don't need to do that anymore. And I had scheduled a massage, like a bodywork massage for the end of it to kind of help my body relax from the processing. And I went into this, and this woman who is going to be doing my massage doesn't speak any English. And I lay down, and I'm still kind of in the medicine, still kind of experiencing that. And as soon as I lay down, it's as if I was kind of communicating with my higher self with this medicine. And it was like, okay, I know that you think that you have healed all those things and you've tried to shaman your way out of it, or you've tapped into bits and pieces. But since you wouldn't choose into it, now I'm going to show you. And as this kind woman began massaging my body, I had my eyes closed, and it was like a movie reel of all of my trauma. And it was like, oh, here's where that memory is trapped. Here's where that memory is trapped. Anywhere she moved on my body, it brought a new memory, things I had blocked out, things I did not want to remember, did not want to go back to. And it was really hard. It was a very difficult experience. And at some point I just had to surrender. I was like, okay, I understand. Like, the body keeps the score. I get it. And that is a book that revolutionized the mental health care space, because it brought the science to what was working. So there's all these people who had PTSD, especially people who had gone through experiences in war and things like that, that before that, they, just labeled them with different labels. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, like, your memories, your body's holding these memories for real. And what you're experiencing in your body is your body just trying to keep you safe. So your body is doing its job. It's when you have a trigger, it's saying, hey, we did that before. Like, that's danger. Don't do that again. And then, but it's trying to help you, but it's also, you're in a completely safe environment. So like when I'm in that store shopping and I see that picture, like, I'm completely fine and safe, but my body put me right back into the trauma. And that's what trauma does. It hijacks your nervous system. It takes you right back to the time and space, and your body re-experiences what you went through. And until you can figure out a way to change that memory and reallocate where it is, where it's held in your body, it's going to keep doing that. And so being able to see all those memories again, it was so interesting because I finally was just like, okay, yep, I get it. My body keeps the score. Like, please just take it away from me. I don't know. Like, this is terrible. Take it away. And then I was like, I was kind of looking down on myself in my mind's eye. And it was really cool. It was like it brought me to this depth of compassion and love, like a mother's love of myself. And it was like, look at what your body has been through. Look at all these hard things that you've gone through. Like, love your body, be so kind, take good care of it. And man, when I was experiencing all the things I was going through, I was so hard on myself. I was so hard on my body. I was so judgmental. Like, I was so embarrassed when my hair was falling out. I mean, I wore one of those like halo things. It's like hair extensions, but I tried that, it was making my hair fall out. But then this halo is just like on a line, so it doesn't pull on your hair. I was so embarrassed about what was happening that I wore one of those for a year and didn't tell a soul. I was so embarrassed, which is ridiculous. Like, I wish I could have just had some empathy and grace for myself and be like, gosh, you're going through a lot. It's okay. Like, it's stress. That's what's happened when your body's in fight or flight. Like, it does all sorts of crazy stuff to you. So coming out of that experience, I was like, okay, there's, the body keeps the score. And then I had learned about meditating in my yoga teacher training class, and it was required, and I hated it. It was 20 minutes a day. You weren't supposed to listen to anything. You weren't supposed to anything going on, sit in your non-thoughts. And for somebody that has thoughts going a bazillion miles, I'm like, okay, that's not even possible. So, but I had to do it for class. So I did it, and he had a journal. So I did that every day for the 6 months or whatever I was in the training. And I hated it every day. Did not like it. I tried, but my mind would just blah, 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 and I didn't love it. So I stopped doing it after that training. And then a little while later, I began noticing that I really missed that time. I was like, gosh, I am like so much more a mess in my head than I was when I was meditating. That's weird. So I began trying it again, and I started doing it in like different ways where, I tried guided meditations. I tried some tracks on like YouTube. I found the Chopra app. I started listening to that and learned how to just sit with my thoughts. And then I eventually learned how to, like if you recognize you're thinking about something, then to just kind of, let's say I'm worrying about, work or something. I imagine a little cloud up here, and I stamp the word work on the cloud. And then I just, with no judgment, just, notice I was thinking about work. There's work. There's my little happy cloud. And I'm just going to watch it go by and just let it go. And so I started doing that, and I started having all these really cool experiences. I'm super, super visual, and my mind just I started having all these downloads, I guess, from me, higher source, I don't know, somewhere, whatever it is that you believe in, it changes for every person. And I just started learning and tapping into my body and realizing that when I got really quiet, that I could find where I was experiencing something in my body. So I'd pause and I would go in and figure out, okay, like where do I feel something in my body? Okay, I feel it in my stomach. And what does it feel like? It feels like I'm sick to my stomach. I'm nauseous. I have tension in my neck. I'm getting a headache. My neck's tight, or my gut is sick, or whatever the thing was. And then I would ask my body, I would say, okay, what are you holding? What's the emotion that is held and in showing up as my sick stomach? I'm like, okay, that's anxiety. I'm sad. That's grief. That's whatever the thing was. I began learning to sit with whatever it was. And I had to learn how to sit through a whole lot of really difficult emotions and not distract myself, not because I got real good at distracting myself because it was so much easier than feeling. I'm like obsessively cleaning. You can be doing really good things and still distracting yourself, you know? It doesn't have to be that you're like on a bender or something to just avoid feeling your feelings. No, you can be doing really good things, which is what I mostly was doing. Or Netflix or whatever. Like I had to learn how to sit and not grab a glass of wine, not turn on the TV, not call a friend, just be quiet. And that was so hard for me, but let me tell you, it changed my life because I went into me and I sat with the way that I was feeling. And there's this awesome poem by Rumi called The Guest House that talks about inviting everything in, every feeling, every shadow, every experience. I'm like getting chills. Inviting it in to sit with you, invite them to tea, invite them to dinner and sit with them and learn from them what you're supposed to get out of it. We're so scared to feel the feelings. Like that's why we bury them, because it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel heartbreak. I don't want to feel grief. I don't want to feel pain and sadness. And it's hard. And so we don't. So we push it down and we block it away because it's uncomfortable, but it is just a feeling. It's not going to kill you. You can sit through a hard feeling and learn to sit and be uncomfortable. And what I learned is how to find the thing inside the feeling, inside the trauma, so that you can release it. And I kind of learned it in this cool way. I'd taken my kids down to, I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'd taken them down to Moab on a little vacation getaway. And my son thought he found a diamond and he was freaking out, really excited. And he wanted me to take it to a gemologist, is what he was calling it, when we got home. And I'm like, bud, I don't think it's real. Like I'm trying to break it gently, but he is just like, no, mom, this is anyways. And so he is like trying to find out all this information. And he says something about how, I said, well, you know, it's really rare. Do you know that diamonds are formed from coal and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, yeah, like under pressure, it turns coal. And he's like, no, that's not right. So then of course we asked the smartest person in my house, Alexa, and he goes and, you know, and she totally proves me wrong. Like that's not how they're formed. So I learned that diamonds are formed. I know, right? See, I thank you for your confused face. I was like, am I the only one that like thought that? Okay. So how they're formed is so inside the earth, deep inside, they're formed when two conditions are present: stress and pressure. And when there is enough stress and pressure in a certain place for a certain amount of time, it forms this diamond. So I began thinking about that concept of stress and pressure, and how in whatever the story is, whatever thing that you experience, I can say, I've been this, I've had this happen to me, this is my story. And for a long time, I was in a victim mentality with that. It took a long time for me to learn how to step outside of that, take my power back, own my pieces. But you can have this story that you say to everybody, and it's whatever your trauma is. And if you can sit with yourself and go inside your story, just like go inside the earth, and take that same situation, you can take a situation that is when you're under extreme stress and pressure, and you can let it run you into the ground. Like it will destroy your body. It will manifest as disease, dis-ease. It will totally show up as stress, anxiety, depression, all sorts of body ailments. Any ailment, any disease that you're going through, you can trace it right back to stress. It always is the underlying thing. There's something that you're not dealing with. There's something that your body is trying to tell you. When you get sick, when you have any body ailment, anything, your body is trying to tell you, it's sending up a red flag. Hey, something's wrong. Pay attention, which is what happened to me in that store. Like I'm holding all this stuff for you and you need to look at it because I can't keep doing it. That's what it's doing. So if you can learn how to go inside yourself, your body, go to those situations that you are under immense stress and pressure, and instead of letting them ruin your body, ruin your mental space, ruin your peace, take that same stress and pressure and turn it into a diamond. You take it and you turn it into something good, something powerful, something positive, which to do that, you have to take your power back. You have to learn to sit with those hard emotions, learn the lesson. Why are you in this situation? What's your part of it? There's likely kind of a hidden pleasure or something that you've been inside that you're thinking is you're getting out of it. You're getting something out of being in the situation. Like for me, in my situation, maybe I thought that I had safety in this situation, that I was taken care of in certain ways or something, but I actually wasn't safe. So it's interesting because when you're like, why am I in this situation? You're getting something out of it. What's the thing you're getting out of the situation? If you can really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, what am I getting out of this tough situation? And that will allow you to take your power back and stop blaming everybody else. And as soon as you take your power back, that's when you can find that diamond, because it releases you of all of the blame is toxic. You will never become empowered when you're blaming anybody for anything else, because you always have a choice, even when you feel like you don't. Even when I felt like I didn't, there's always a choice. There is. And people won't like that. But if you're really honest with yourself, there's a reason you're in whatever situation you're in. And there's things you can do. You have options, you have resources. And so the other thing that I learned is that you have got to master forgiveness. And that one was really hard for me.
Okay, you're smiling, Brooke, talking about forgiveness after very traumatic things.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I wish I had some of that kombucha. That looks great. So
yeah,
number one, do you want your diamonds or not? And number two, so do you want your fucking diamonds, or are you going to just leave them in the ground and never claim them? Number two, we're talking about forgiveness. So let's go into that, because you're not talking about this as some rookie that's trying to, some esoteric, let's paint, like you've been through shit. So
yeah.
what did you learn?
Yeah. I worked with forgiveness in a bunch of different ways. At first, actually, this was kind of a funny story. I completely derailed an entire class one time because in my yoga teacher training, we were doing this exercise where we were supposed to write down these qualities. And anyways, you're supposed to see in others what you see in yourself. And so we were going through this exercise, and there was a part of it where I was feeling like I was kind of resisting a little bit. And my teacher said to me, the instructor, she's like, well, and you're this and this and this, and you're forgiving. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she stopped and she's like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I am not a forgiving person. And it was weird because it was like, I was so vehement about it. And it was just mostly the one person that I was trying to forgive that I just couldn't get there. And I remember just like almost shaking and being like, I can't forgive. I don't even want to. I can never get to a place ever. I will never forgive. I can't. Because to forgive would make it okay, which I know that doesn't. I knew it logically, but it still just felt like that to me. And so, I totally like messed up the whole class. She's like, wait, and then she had to spend time helping me manage my anger that I was holding. But as I found a book called The Book of Forgiveness by Desmond Tutu. And there's a part in it in the beginning that talks about the prayer to want to forgive. And it was something about how I don't want to forgive you, but I want to forgive you at some point in the future. And that was as far as I could go. I was like, I know I probably want to forgive people and in a few different situations that were hard, but I just can't. But I want to. So it was like this super tiny baby step. And then as I got further down the road, I began working with forgiveness as a practice, like yoga. Every day I wake up and I have a new opportunity to forgive again. I can just try to forgive just for today. For today, I forgive. And I worked with it that way for a very, very long time because I didn't think I could get to the other side. And as throughout my healing process, I uncovered other things. There was some sexual trauma when I was a child that then reactivated everything that I didn't remember until later. And then there was that to forgive. And then another hard thing so they were I kind of had these handful of things that I was like trying to forgive. And what I came to realize was that being unable to forgive was blocking me from everything, from abundance, from peace, from everything that I wanted. And it was very clear because I'd done so much other work, and that was the thing I couldn't get to. So I decided to do like a very conscious practice to try to forgive these people. So I started doing Ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian tradition. So it's these 4 sentences that you say over and over again. And it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And it's a really cool, I've used it with my clients a ton. I do it in sound baths a lot. It's extremely powerful because you can do it you can do it for a certain person, a certain situation, something that happened to you, an event. And another really powerful one is you can do it to yourself. I had to sit with that for a long time and say it to me because I had to forgive me. That was the other thing that I uncovered in this, that I also hadn't forgiven me. And that's a hard one. That's a hard one. So every day I would wake up at 5 o'clock and I would do my meditation and I would sit with myself and I would feel these things and I would send love from my heart. And I would imagine a specific person of my little handful of things that I was struggling to forgive. And I would say that over and over and over. And I would imagine the person. And in my heart and mind, I would say, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I would just say it over and over and over and over. Over and over and over. And I did that every day for a long time. And I felt a lot closer to it. Some of the ones I felt like I was able to release. I felt like that was I was able to release that. And then the one that was the hardest, I was really still struggling. And I read a different book. I can't remember. It's by, I think her last name is Schwarzenegger on the book, and it's something about forgiveness. Oh, I'm so sorry. I wish I had it off the top of my head, but I listened to that book, and it's about a whole bunch of survivors, Elizabeth Smart and all sorts of people who have been through insane things and how they each worked with forgiveness. And it was interesting because it was all kind of different, and a consistent theme among a lot of it was that, a higher power eventually took it away, or it was, released from them. And I was like, that's not going to happen. And I wasn't sure. I just was like, that's never going to be like, that's not going to happen for me. And I can't see I can't get to the other side. I don't know how I'll ever get there. And it was so fascinating because I was doing a breath work with one of my coaches, and it was a very intense, like a somatic breathwork holotropic, where you're breathing in and out through your mouth for a very long time. And it taps you into it, releases a lot that's trapped in your body. They're very intense. And in that, I imagined my higher self. I don't even like to say imagine. I just really work with my higher self in my meditations. I don't know. She comes to me and she teaches me things. So she came to me and I was laying down and she was kind of like hovering over me in my mind's eye. And she was like, okay, do you really want to do this? Because if you do this, you can't go back. Which was interesting because I had times where I was like, okay, like I'm forgiving you. And then I would have some trauma, I would be triggered. And then I was like, no, I did not forgive you. And so I think I tried it and I couldn't get there. And but I was so miserable in being unable to release that from my body that I said, yeah, I want that. I want to release that. And she was like, okay, because if we do this, you cannot go back. And I said, okay, I want to do it. And it was so fascinating because it was like I always see her as like almost like a silhouette with stars in her, like the universe. I never see her face. She's just like this like star woman. I don't know. And I was laying down. She was like kind of over the top of me and she just like merged into me. And then within the breathwork, this song came on about who are you behind your name? Who are you behind your body? Who are you really? Which is interesting because when you started this, you're like, who are you? What do you do? I'm like, I'm this old soul. I don't know, that has had this interesting earth experience. and it was like the second that was happening, I just, was releasing everything. And I came out of that experience, and I don't know how to explain it other than it was gone. It was released from me. It was released from my body, those feelings of that. I mean, I'd had so much anger to process, so many things I had to process with myself, of things I wish I would have done differently, how I should have handled things and all that. But it was released from me. And I knew I had to anchor it in. And so I called the person and asked if they would meet me for 5 minutes. And I went, and it was so hard. I was so scared, and it was really difficult. It was really difficult. But I went, and I just said, I had to breathe for a second. What do you want? And I'm like, okay, just give me a second. And then I just said, I forgive you. I forgive you. And it was this really beautiful moment, because all of that anger and hurt and frustration, and it was like I was able to see it from such a different perspective. I've ghostwritten books before. I used to be a writer. I've written my own, sort of, we'll see. But from a character standpoint, if you put Brooke here, Brooke's born, she's here, and this is the arc of my life, and I need to get to this place over here. And I'm this extremely narrow-minded, in a very strict religion, judgy person over here. How am I going to get over here? And I started thinking about soul contracts. And I don't know if people believe in those, or in whatever, it doesn't really matter. But if it was the case that we're all here to help move one another forward, and we make contracts with one another, then this person who I had this experience with was doing the things, and I was doing the things because we had this contract to fulfill, to push me into me now. Because that girl that I started out as, I am not the same person at all. I'm not doing any of this. I was working in finance. I was a completely different person. That person's never going to be able to help people. And I'm reminded again and again that I need to share my story. I need to talk about it. So this person was just fulfilling what they had. Really, it's you have to look at it from a really high up position where you're not in the feeling and the trauma, but it's okay, here's the players, and let's play this out. And I need to nudge you to reach deep into yourself and become this different version of yourself, this powerful person who can help a lot of people. And people don't talk about this stuff. The things that I experienced, I'm, glossing over a lot of details. People don't talk about it. And I am supposed to talk about it, because I can help people get rid of that. And I can look at them and say, I know exactly what that feels like. Our experiences may be different, but I know grief. I know heartache. I know heartbreak. I know pain. I know loss. I know all that well. And I'll sit with you. I'll sit with you while you're feeling it. And here's what I did. Here's these tools that I have now that helped me. And hopefully I can help you get through your arc of your healing journey faster than I got through mine. And it was interesting because, again, after it had been a long time, this was very, very pretty recently, last fall, I had a trigger, which I didn't have very often anymore. And I knew what it was. I knew I was going to be fine. I knew I just had to feel the feelings, and my body was freaking out. And I knew now. So I went and got in a salt bath, and I was just okay, I'm going to be fine. And it's going to be fine. So I just sat there and I was just feeling the feelings, and it was so uncomfortable in my body. And I was kind of pissed, to be honest. I was like, why? Why is this happening again? Like, I learned it already. I'm teaching it. I have clients. I have a program. Like, why do I have to feel this again? And as I sat there, the answer came to me. It was like, because you need to remember how it felt in your body, because somewhere there's a woman crying in a bathtub and she doesn't know what's happening and how to help herself and how to help her body. And if you don't talk about it and tell her how, teach her, help her learn things that you learned, she's going to be in it for so much longer. It was like a mantle of responsibility. Like, you can do this and you're supposed to do this. It's like, your soul calling or whatever. And also, like, it makes all the stuff I've went through, it gives it like a purpose, it's the diamond. I can take all that shit and let the story go, release the trauma. I don't have to blame anybody. I take my ownership. I take my power back, and I just am me. And here's what I know, and I'll share it with you, and maybe stuff will work for you and maybe it doesn't. And that's fine. You have your own journey. I isn't like I know everything. I just know what I've experienced, and this is what helped me, and hopefully it helps some people. So the forgiveness piece was really amazing, because also with the other person and then me, like the last person, the hardest one was probably me.
That's how it works. Is because it's the distraction to blame others. Doesn't matter if it's rape, if it's incest, if it's your child dies, if it's your mom takes her own life. The distraction is it's someone else. And after we work through all that forgiveness, then it lands right on us. And then we get to see all the ways we abandon ourselves. Yeah. That's the real work. The real work is not to forgive others. That's the work to get to the real work, which is to face ourselves in the fucking mirror, look ourselves in our eyes and go, who the hell are you being? Because you are fucking responsible for your own fucking life. And that's the truth.
It is. It's a hard truth. It's a hard one to share with people, because it was a hard one for me to learn. I spent a lot of time blaming, and I had a really awful but powerful experience where a friend, in the very beginning, when I was going through all of this, there was a trigger at a party and I left, and she came after me and she was trying to get me to stay. And I was like, I'm leaving. And she was like, I am so sick of you playing the victim. And I was so hurt at the time. I was just like, what? Like, I am a victim. Like, why? You're one of like 4 people that know, like, I am a victim. Why are you saying that? And I didn't understand at that time, like, you can be a victim. People are victimized. People go through things where they are the victim, but you don't have to remain in a victim mentality, which is where I was, which I didn't understand what she was saying. I was so hurt. It took me like years to be like, oh, I need to own my pieces, my part. And then once I was able to do that, I was like, oh, taking a look in the mirror and then learning to love all the parts of yourself, and look at all the parts of yourself and sit with that shadow and be like, oh, okay, I see you. And I'm going to learn from you. And that's okay. Like, welcoming all of it. It's like, once you learn about all those pieces, instead of, shying away from it, it's like you're expanding your container. So then the pieces of trauma, they're still there. Like, it doesn't go away, the stuff that you felt, but your container to hold it is so much bigger. So you're not bumping into it as often. And when you do bump into it, you have a regulated central nervous system, so you can handle it. You can choose when you want to go in and process something. When your central nervous system is deregulated, you can't choose. That's when you get pushed into fight or flight. And that's your sign that you need to do the inner work. You need to slow down. You need to sit with yourself. You need to make space in your life to feel, to breathe, to process, so that you can have a regulated nervous system. Then you can choose, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to look at this piece of something that's happening, and I'm going to go sit with it. And then you can sit with it for a bit, feel it, allow it to come in, be the guest house, allow it to move out. And then you can go back to your normal life. And you don't, because at first, when I first started doing that, I would think about something and then it would like derail me for the rest of the week. I'd be sick. And now I've regulated my central nervous system so much more, so I can go in and process stuff, and then I can come back out and be okay.
Well, I just keep coming back to, we've gone over here. I got to bounce, but it really, do you want your diamonds or not? Because if you want your diamonds, they're yours for the taking.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. And I mean, that's why I do what I do. So I launched an online course at the beginning of the year, and I have 2 that I'm running. One is called the AMARA Map, which is getting unstuck. It's everything I just talked about. It's releasing how to release all that trauma from your body. So I have a whole bunch of video modules and weekly coaching where we go through, it's a 12-week process, and we do somatic practices. We do coaching in a group setting. There's PDFs and worksheets and modules and all that sort of stuff. And I teach you how to go inside your body and feel those things and how to release them. And I tell all my stories and I have I have a whole book list for each thing and all these different things I've experienced with myself, with my clients. And that's kind of the whole healing piece of it. And then the other part is the AMARA Portal, which is the expansion. So once you've kind of gone through a lot of that healing work, you're ready for something more. You're ready to do the fun part where you're calling in new things, where how do you want to design your life? Where you're manifesting, where you're tapping into more pleasure, more fun, more ease. And that turns into the way that you create your life, and things just happen for you. And that's kind of like the other piece of it. So the first one, it's kind of like the caterpillar going into the chrysalis, going down to nothing, and then coming back out the butterfly. So it's kind of the 2 pieces. And I love the imagery of that because the caterpillar is the exact same DNA as the butterfly, which is crazy because they're totally different, but that's been proven. So it goes down to goo into the chrysalis and becomes literally goo, and then forms into this beautiful butterfly. And that is kind of the whole arc of what I teach in my different programs. So hopefully that resonates with people, because I love to share it. And I just want to let people know you can feel better. I mean, I didn't have it, and I wish I would have had somebody to tell me like, hey, you can feel better. You're going to be okay. It's all right. You're going to be fine. You're going to be more than fine.
Well, you've helped me feel better today, Brooke. This
Good.
is exactly what's been on my radar the last 24 hours this morning when I woke up, I had this strong thought, impression, prayer thing come to me. It's like all the things that I'm tempted to push away are all the things I not only need to sit with, they're actually the very things I need to love and integrate until I no longer even need to push them away. Then I've started the journey.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It's just sitting with all of that and not being scared of it. When you push it away, it's just going to expand and show up weird in your body. All right, let's do it. Welcome it in. And, you got to have the right container to do it in a safe space where you feel, time, space, and everything. But that's the work. It's the work, but then it's the joy too. You get to a place where it will change your life. It will. Like, you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to feel shitty all the time. You don't have to have triggers. You don't have to deal with body ailments like that. You can heal your body, your mind, and your body are so powerful. And if you learn how to master your thoughts and emotions, literally anything is possible.
Well, you've certainly motivated me. I want all my diamonds. So thank you, Brooke, for being here on AMARA Network TV.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
If you've been watching to AMARA Network TV, Brooke Bishop, you are an absolute blessing. So what an honor to hear from you today. And it's so nice I don't have to do much of the talking. So every interview is so different. And I just really enjoyed sitting and listening to you. I know a lot of people are going to resonate with what you said. So I'll tag you in this. Please put your links in after.
Yeah, I'm on Heal with Brooke on all the platforms, Heal with Brooke. And that's my website, and all the platforms are Heal with Brooke.
Brooke, thanks for taking the time for me today. It's a real gift you gave me. So thanks for being the beautiful bird.
Thank you.
We'll chat soon.
Bye.